Okay, I'm Katrina. I'm a sponsor teacher here at Family Partnership, and I'm super excited to introduce you to my friend Julie. I'm going to tell you just a bit that I myself have been homeschooling my own kids for 10 years, and I have missed a couple of things about public school. And one of the things I have missed most is music ed, just like the elementary music classroom. I have really hoped that my kids could be a part of that. So I'm very, very excited that Julie's going to come and talk to us today because she is a music teacher in Anchorage School District, and she's also an amazing organist, plays the pipe organ. But she is going to talk to us about how to just what goes on in a music classroom, how to do that at home, and I'm going to sit back and just learn. So the floor is yours, Julie.
All right, well, thank you for the introduction, and welcome everyone that's on, and I know a lot of you will be listening at a later time, so welcome to you as well. So just a little bit about my background. So like she said, I do play the pipe organ and also play piano. My major instrument was clarinet in college. I don't play much clarinet anymore, but my background is mostly instrumental. I always thought I would be teaching band, and I ended up kind of falling into the general music world of elementary and have really, really loved it. So that's where I am. I've been teaching, this is now my 8th year in elementary music, and I absolutely love it, and I really doubt I'll probably ever move back up to the secondary music world of band. So I want to just start off though. I know some of you, I see 2 of you have videos on, but I would just be curious to know what your background is in music. So like maybe you, in high school, you played an instrument or sung in a choir, or maybe you don't really have, any background in music. Maybe you had a little bit in school growing up, or maybe you sing in a choir now, or you go to concerts now. So yeah, if you want to just kind of share, that would kind of help me know, at least for those of you who are live, where I can direct this presentation a little bit too. So I think, Tanya, do you want to go ahead and tell us?
Hi, I actually don't have any background in music. I don't play any instruments, even though we do have a piano in the house. So I hope to get my boys started on that and maybe learn along the way as I teach them as well. And I mean, besides elementary music, I haven't had music since then, but I do love music. I love to sing, although it's mostly in the shower.
Hey, that's great. Awesome. Sarah's got her mic or her video off. Geneva, do you want to let us know?
Hi, I played flute in high school and took like a piano course in college, but other than that, not much.
Okay, great. And then Katrina, do you want to share?
Yes, I will share. And Sarah said she was a percussionist in high school. She put it in the chat box.
Awesome.
I played piano my whole life. I started when I was 3, and my mom was a piano teacher and was an elementary music teacher, and I played clarinet also in the 5th grade all the way up through college. And I thought I was going to be a music major, studied music in college a few years, and then decided to switch to Latin. I don't know why I thought that would be more lucrative than music, but my husband, of course, now is a musician, and I just hang out with him a lot.
So just music by osmosis and listening, which is a great way to learn it. Awesome. And then yeah, Sarah says that she was a percussionist in high school. So great. That is awesome. That gives me a little bit more information going forward too. So this is kind of the agenda for today. So I'm going to talk about first why I teach music, why is it important? Then I'm going to talk a little bit about what happens in music class for me personally, but it's likely very similar for other music classes that you have remembered back from your days in music class or other music classes in the district. And then we'll talk about some of the music standards, We'll look at singing and instruments and some information about both of those. And then I'm going to end with some curriculum resources. So hopefully you'll get some ideas going through everything today, but then I'm going to kind of give you some websites or some books that you can use that would be great resources for homeschool music. If you have any questions during the presentation, I love questions. If I don't know the answer, I'm always happy to learn more and get back with you. So just feel free to pipe up if you have any wonderings or questions about anything that I talk about. All right, so why teach music? So there's a lot of reasons why to teach music, and often when I have parents that come to me as a music teacher, they're like, oh, I want my kid to be excited about music because I know that music can really help boost their math scores, or it can really help boost their reading ability, and that's, I really want them to get involved. And I'm like, great, that's, great, we have some buy-in there. For me, I really, like, on a personal platform level, those are all great reasons and they've all been studied, but I also believe that music on its own is worthy of being studied. Like, we don't need to study music so that we can be better math students. We should study music because music is, lovely and joyful and creative, and it has all of those things by itself without having to influence other areas. So yes, that's a good reason to study music, but I also believe as a standalone subject, it's great too. So the ESEA, which is the Elementary Secondary Education Act, does list music and art as core subjects. That's a new kind of revelation in the past 10 years. We've really pushed for that. And what that means is it kind of helps so that music doesn't get cut first thing, but it also puts music and music teachers on that same certified playing field as other subjects as well. It is one of Gardner's multiple intelligences. If you've never heard of that, there's a kind of colorful chart there. It shows all of the different intelligences that there are. But it incorporates creativity, joy, critical thinking, variety. Oftentimes, my several classes of students that I have will come to music, and it's one of the only times in the day where they have a lot of personal choice. There's movement, there's singing. It's a very active, enjoyable class for them, and they're also learning a lot of great skills in music too. But I think for me, kind of the best reason, or one of the best reasons to study music is what's called the 30-year plan. So this comes from John Feyerabend, and he's kind of the premier early elementary music researcher. And he looks at students, and he looks at them not as 6 and 7 and 8-year-olds, but how they're going to be when they're 30 years old. And so he's looking at what can we do to create a culture of music and have a society of, citizens who are musical, and what will that build in society? And I'll talk about that a little more. But he believes all adults should be tuneful, beatful, and artful so that they can participate in music that is woven throughout their lives. So tuneful, it means having tunes in your head, being able to sing those tunes. Beatful, to group music in 2s or 3s, and to be able to find the beat of music. And artful is to be moved by music in the ways that music can elicit an emotional response. So this is kind of the 30-year plan of what he hopes when his students that he teaches are 30 are able to do and feel comfortable doing. So singing lullabies to babies, singing happy birthday, singing in worship services, joining others in songs of culture or the national anthem, dancing at a wedding, clapping your hands in time with music, seeking out venues to experience music, so going to concerts and supporting the arts in the community, being moved by music, and then building community when you're participating in music with other people. And so for me, I find that like really I'm like, oh, it gives me kind of like a breath of fresh air. And I also think it's interesting that, you know, none of this says I want to be, you know, it's not saying he wants 30-year-olds who are musicians, like, as a career. Great if they are. They're definitely participating in all of these ways, but it's just showing that we want, you know, if students want to pursue music later on, great, but these are all ways that we can participate in music without making it a career, because most students will not go on to choose music as a career, and that's totally fine. So this is music class in elementary school. So these are actually pictures that I have taken of some students, some recently and some from years past. So just to give you kind of a glimpse of what it looks like, this is, so over here on the left, these are some students. This is actually from this past year. You can't see it, but they're playing xylophones, and we're reading a poem about rain. And so then the students are on the backs of the shoulders, and they're tapping like rain, and then they're having to match the shoulder with the correct mallet on the xylophone. And really, I was just doing some mallet technique with them and having students connect right shoulder to right hand, left shoulder to left hand, and kind of moving with the poem that I was reading about rain. So the person that was tapping had that responsibility. In the middle picture, they're just playing some drums. There's some cards on the floor, so I think they were doing some rhythms that they had constructed and come up with, and doing it together as a group. On the right side, this is Taniqling. So this is actually, it's a Polynesian way of dancing with poles. And so they would use those poles in a 3-beat pattern, and then the students in the middle would have to jump in between those poles at the correct times with the music in order for it all to work out together. That's always a fun one, and it tires kids out very quickly. Down here on the left, these are some students who we're doing a mirroring activity. So they're moving to music, but there's one who's a leader, and then one who's mirroring. So she's having to do whatever the leader is doing. Up here at the top, this is called a cat and mouse game. So they're moving their body while they're listening to a 12-bar blues progression. And so they have to switch which way they're moving based on what the chords are doing or what they hear in the music. And then it turns into a game. So the cat is chasing the mouse, and then they're ending up like kind of a grid, like a maze. And so they have to try to track one another down. That's 5th grade there, and they love that game. It also helps their listening to hear those different chord changes. Down here on the bottom, this is a kind of a game with some turkey feathers. They have to try to put the musical alphabet in order. So they're passing around a bag and putting those feathers in order. And then up here, this is some students playing, it's a Japanese hand clapping game, and it's called Say, Say, Say. So they sing the song, they're doing the game, and then they eventually will show rock, paper, or scissors, and then one of them is the winner or the loser, and then they have to fold their paper and try to stay on their paper in order to stay in the game. So a very quick overview with just some pictures there, but I'm curious, what kind of thoughts come to mind from this, and what's like expected or unexpected from what you've seen? So if you want to share, just go ahead. Anybody?
Well, it was unexpected to see how much movement is in music, to actually see the kids doing a lot of physical things.
Yeah.
So that was different for me. I didn't realize they did that much.
Awesome. Okay.
I think the games sound super fun, but it feels a little overwhelming to know, like, well, which games to play and how do I play them and when do I play them? And so I guess I didn't realize how many different games you were doing with the kids to teach all these different musical concepts. I knew you played them, but you really surprised me with how many and the variety.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so that's good feedback for me too. I think it's always interesting when I think a lot of parents sometimes may look at music class like, okay, well, we get, our singing book and we sing and that's what music class is. And I'm like, well, it's part of it. But yeah, definitely there's a lot of movement. When I look at planning for classes, I always will include movement in some way as part of the class. So movement is a great way to experience music and to express music. And so that for me is like something I'm always looking at doing. So I usually will start off with some singing, and then we go on to doing some type of movement activity. And then we're like really honing in on a concept. So that's just how I plan my music lessons. I'm not saying this is what you need to do. I'm just kind of telling you what it looks like for elementary music class for me. Yes, it's very active. I am for sure tired by the end of the day. And so being a music teacher on Zoom is a totally different world as well. One thing that I think is important to mention is that performance is not our end-all goal. A lot of times I think parents, of course, parents come to concerts and they see this performance that happens and they think, oh, well, this is what music class is. It's we practice this song, we get really good at it, and then we sing it. Or we practice this musical piece on our xylophones and we get really good at it, and then we play it. And performance is definitely part of music, but 95% of what we're doing in music class will never be seen by in a concert format. And I think a lot of times we push a lot of performance on kids, and at this age level, it's really about experiencing music and being active with music and having joy with music as well. All right, so the Alaska standards are actually pretty open-ended. They're pretty vague, and this is what the current standards are for Alaska. If you actually click this link down here, I'll share all of this with you or whoever is listening later on, all of these slides. But the Alaska standards, it's very open-ended. As you can see, these questions are like, if I were someone, for me as a music teacher, it's kind of hard for me to totally follow. I understand what they're saying, but it's like, it doesn't give me a lot of guidance. And I imagine if you are, don't have as much musical background, it would be kind of like, okay, I don't know where to begin. So these are the questions that are on there. It's about responding to music, evaluating the quality of music performances, how do musicians make creative decisions? That's really what it is. So it's great if you have a lot of creative ideas. It's not so great if you're looking for like, hey, I need some, like, what do we do at first grade for rhythm, or fourth grade, what are we going to be doing for learning about melody? So this is, if you want to look more into this, definitely click that link and look into it. But this is more of the guidance from Anchorage School District about where students should be at what grade level. And I've broken this down into our different categories within music. So this is all about rhythm here. Now, if you see this and you understand what all of these terms mean, awesome. If you don't, just kind of take it for what it is. There are varying guidelines based on district by district around the United States, based on what different pedagogies say, like Orff Schulwerk or Kodai. But this is really kind of the basis of what most of those are really close to. So it's very, very similar. Maybe with, instead of learning 16th notes in 5th grade, we learn it in 4th grade. So it's just minor differences. So I'm not going to read through all of these for you, but this is the rhythm, where students should be by grade level for rhythm. So starting in kindergarten, we look at steady beat, long versus short, going all the way through 5th grade, looking at syncopation, 16th notes. This is kind of the range of what it is. So this is for rhythm. And then in melody, they use a lot of solfege terms. So these terms here, like so and mi and la and low-do, this is all talking about pitches on a solfege scale. So a lot of people hear solfege and they think of, hey, the sound of music. Yeah, that's part of it. It's just giving other names to our pitches within the octave. So if I have a whole octave, I'm going to be labeling those, my home tone, as do. So if I'm singing like, happy birthday to you, my home tone is here. And when I end the song, happy birthday, dear Dada, happy birthday to you, there's my home tone. And so it's just kind of where that home tone, it's our end of our song where it's ending, and there's our do. And so using the scales of pitches from there, that's what it's talking about when it says like so and mi and la. And we'll go into a little more with solfege later. This is harmony. Harmony is music that goes with the melody. So it's not the melody, but it adds to the melody and gives kind of a bolster to the melody that's happening. Form, how music is organized. So when you see ABA, it's same, different, same. We have partner songs, 2 songs that are sung at the same time that sound lovely together. And 12-bar blues in 5th grade. I'm not going to go deep into any of this, but if you want to refer back to this, you can in the slides. And then expressive qualities are anything that helps music become more expressive. So more changing the tempo, changing the speed, looking at tone color, so instrumentation, instruments of the orchestra, all different types of things like that. All right, so I'm going to kind of take you on an elementary music journey now and just show kind of what it looks like when I'm teaching. We're going to look at kind of 3 different levels, so early, middle, and then late elementary. And I'm going to do this as kind of like you're my students right now, so feel free to participate if you would like. And then I'll kind of switch back with my teacher hat and then explain kind of what I'm doing as well. So this is all going to be the same song, Apple Tree. We're going to just take it off in some totally different directions. So first I'm going to ask the students, I'm going to sing the song for them, and typically students need to hear a song times before they are able to sing it if it's a short song. And so I'm going to kind of trick students into listening 7 different times without having them just to sit and listen 7 times, because we know kindergarten and 1st grade will not do that. So I might say to them, I'm going to sing a song about apple trees today. Can you count how many times I sing the word apple? Apple tree, will the apples fall on me? I won't cry and I won't shout if the apples knock me out. And then I might say, okay, did you hear that? Oh, I'm not quite sure. Let's sing it again. And so then I'll sing it again, and they're counting how many times they hear the word apple. Then I might do something like, every time I sing the word apple, can you pretend like you have a big juicy apple and you are taking a bite out of the apple? So then I sing it again. Apple tree, will the apples fall on me? I won't cry and I won't shout if the apples knock me out. And so they're crunching on their apples as I'm doing that. And so I'm going to continue to kind of do that, maybe in this lesson, I'm not going to sing any more apple tree, but then I'll come back next lesson and then we'll kind of dive deeper into it. So now they've already heard it 3 times last week. Now I'm going to be singing it again. Kids love repetition. So don't ever feel like if you're doing something, you're doing it too much. Reading the same book, I'm sure the same children's book 12 times, they're still infatuated the 12th time. So don't feel like I always feel like, oh gosh, this song is so boring, but kids they love the repetition because it's something that they know, and then they start to really invest into it as well. So now we're coming back next lesson, and I might say, hey, remember that song about apple trees? And then I might sing it for them again and say, hey, can you keep a steady beat on your shoulders as I'm singing about the apple tree? So they're going to keep it here. Apple tree, will the apples fall on me? I won't cry and I won't shout if the apples knock me out. And then we keep the steady beat there. Maybe I have someone offer where else to keep the steady beat. Now I'm tricking them. We've listened to it 5 times. We're getting there. So then I might say, can you go gather some apples around the room? And I want you to have all of your apples gathered and back to your spot by the time I finish the song. Now I'm teaching them about phrase length. So I'm kind of getting them to listen for when the song is coming to an end and then getting back to their spot by that time. So I'm going to sing it again. They're going around the room, they're collecting apples. I'm giving them a chance to move. Will the apples knock me out? Oh my goodness, are we back to our spots? And then hopefully they are. If not, we can practice. Now I've sung it, 9 times for them. So they're probably getting it in their head at this point. Now, the students haven't yet sung the song, and I'm kind of doing this intentionally. A big thing that Fire Robin says is we want to sing for students, not sing with students. So when I'm singing, and I'm not always perfect about that, but I try. We want students to develop the ability to sing on their own and not sing exactly what I'm singing right after me. What I mean by that is if you've ever been, this happens to me at church when I'm singing, I hear a song playing and I kind of know the hymn, but I'm not quite sure. And what happens is we actually have a delay singing. So I'm not even sure what the next note is, but I'm singing it immediately after it's played by the piano or the organ. I don't actually know the song. I'm just delay singing it right after the person that's doing it. But if I were asked to sing on my own, I have no idea what the song is. So anyway, it's developing when students sing by themselves, or when kids sing by themselves, it's developing that inner ear, and they're having to do it without the aid of a piano or a singer with them. So anyway, just kind of some tips there. So then I might say, hey, can you sing that apple song with me? And we'll sing it so they will sing it at that point, and I might play along on a xylophone like this, or I might play along on the piano, but I'm not going to play the exact song. So I'm not going to go, can you hear that? Okay, cool. I have a little xylophone down here. So we sing the song. Now I'm going to ask them, hey, what color can apples be? Hopefully at this point they respond red, yellow, and green, or we get to that point. And I'll say, can you repeat after me? Red, yellow, green. I noticed that one of these apples has 2 sounds in it, but only one of those different colors has 2 sounds, 2 syllables. Can you figure out which one has 2 sounds? Red, yellow, green. And so hopefully they come up with yellow as the 2 sound. And then I would probably have like physical apples. I'm just showing this to you this way on the screen. I might say, hey, can I have a student come up and choose some apples? We're going to put 4 apples in this basket because only 4 apples are going to fit. So I might have a student come up, and I don't think I can move it in this. Let me see. So a student will come up and let's say they go red, red, yellow, green. All right, so I'm going to say, okay, friends, can you all say this pattern together? And we're going to do this over and over. Let's say all these colors. Ready, go. Red, red, yellow, green. Red, red, yellow, green. And then I'm going to have them continue to say it while I'm going to sing the song. Apple tree, will the apples fall on me? They're going red, red, yellow, green. And I'm giving them some independence in having to say that pattern. What they don't realize is that this is some early rhythm. So they're having to say this in a pattern. It's actually quarter note, eighth notes, quarter note. But they're having to do that with just looking at the colors of apples, which is accessible for kids at that age. And then I might say, while we're singing it, I might have another student come up. They'll make a new pattern, so they'll switch out some of the apples. And then we'll do this new ostinato as I'm singing it, like that. Now, this is not all done in one lesson. I'm kind of giving you the overview of the whole apple tree. But then we can have, this is some early composition. So composition is where students are writing music. And at this point, I might give them 4 apples and I might say, hey, you have 3 colors to choose from, red, yellow, and green. I'm going to pull their crayons out. You can choose between these 3 colors and go ahead and color the composition that you want to, have for the apples. And so the students color them, and then we can do them as a class. So then I might take their colored sheet of paper and put it up on the board. And then I'll be like, hey, this is Daniel's work for apples. Can we all say the pattern that he wrote together? And then we'll say it, we'll sing with the pattern at the same time. It's really giving students like, ooh, my pattern gets shown to the whole class. This is so cool. I came up with this. It's giving a lot of ownership. So now we're going to take the apple tree in a little different direction. This is going to be for about 2nd or 3rd grade, so a little bit older students. So I'm going to start off again, making sure that I'm singing for students, not with them, but distract them with other tasks as I'm doing it. So for 2nd and 3rd grade, I would have them start off with doing a padding pattern on their leg. So left, right, and they're going back and forth while I'm singing. Apple tree, will the apples fall on me? I won't cry and I won't shout if the apples knock me out. Now, I'm doing this for a very specific reason because I'm trying to get them ready with this left and right to end up transferring it to a xylophone playing left and right. So we've done a few things with learning apple tree. At this point, students can read. So I'm building the ability to also, these are some words that 2nd and 3rd grade recognize. And so I'm building their reading abilities as well. I don't always show the words, but I do think it is helpful in some cases. So I might have, every time I say the word apple, students are having to clap on the word apple, and we'll, sing the song several more times, or I will sing for them several more times so that they can get it in their head. And then eventually I might say, can you repeat after me? So they've seen this notation before. Pick up all the apples, pick up all the apples. Can you find a way to put that on your body as you say it? Pick up all the apples, pick up all the apples. So they're doing this over and over. And then I'll say, can you keep doing that ostinato while I sing the song? So I'll go, apple tree, will the apples fall on me? I won't cry and I won't shout if the apples knock me out. So they've gotten that down. I might have them find a way to move, and so do a locomotive movement and do that rhythm in their body. So maybe walking. Walking and doing a beat, a steady beat even, is very, very difficult for kids. So that's something that kindergarten and first grade probably won't be able to do yet, but second and third grade, they can start to pick up on that. All right, so then I'm going to have more time will be spent with this, but eventually I'll have students divided into 3 groups. So I'm going to have some students doing the ostinato, pick up all the apples. An ostinato is a rhythm pattern that repeats over and over and over again. I'll have another group of students singing the song, and then I'll have another group of students who are doing that left-right pattern from the beginning on a xylophone. So they only have 2 notes to pick from, and they're just going back and forth. So I've got my singers, I've got my ostinato, and I've got my xylophone players, and we're going to do this whole thing together. Then I would have them switch and then go to a new rotation. So eventually they'll have a chance to do each one of these as they go around the room. This is really the best way to start xylophone playing, is by just eliminating everything except maybe 2 keys. And they're just doing, you know, either broken like this, or they're doing it together. That gives kids a really great introduction into doing some xylophone playing, which can be tricky to or left and right hand. So then I might tell students, new lesson, what could you make with these apples? If I were to tell you that we were going to have a cooking class today, can you act out how you would make your favorite apple dessert? From picking the apples off the tree to eating it, eating the dessert and enjoying it. So I might play some music not related to apple tree, or I might sing apple tree while they do that. And they're just kind of silently going and picking apples off the tree, cutting up the apples, putting it into a pie, putting the pie in the oven, whatever they might choose to do. And so then I might say, hey, whatever apple dessert that you just made, can you say it 4 times in a row? So let's say they go, apple pie, apple pie, apple pie, apple pie. Great. Can you now think of your second favorite apple dessert? So if the apple pie was already eaten, what would you make instead of that apple pie? And then I want you to think of that second favorite dessert. We're going to make that into the yellow apple. So let's say my second favorite apple dessert is applesauce. So I'm going to go apple pie, applesauce, apple pie. Now what I'm doing here is I'm actually creating a form. So if we were to put this in a form name, this would be A, B, and A. Lots of patterns are used in math in early elementary, so this is often something that students are familiar with, but now they're getting to hear these patterns happen in music. So they would go ahead and say that, apple pie, applesauce, apple pie, or whatever they choose as their favorite and second favorite. Then I'm going to switch the pattern up. Hey, can you remember that second favorite one? And we're going to do that with our favorite pie dessert, but now I've switched the order. Let's see if I can trick you. And so they go through applesauce, apple pie, applesauce, apple pie, etc. And then we've got one more form. And so now what I might have students do at this point, we might take a non-pitched percussion instrument, so like a triangle or a wood block, anything like that. And I might have students figure out how to put that rhythm on a percussion instrument. And so then they might do that, all of their patterns at the same time. I might ask a few of them to present. We might have a student present their idea and then we'll all sing apple tree, and then we'll go to another student, they play their pattern, we all sing apple tree. Kind of a lot of ideas from there. All right, now we're going to 4th and 5th grade. So Same song, but now I'm going to change it to make it a little bit more appropriate for older elementary. So this is our solfege ladder, and it's showing our pitches in a whole octave of 8 notes. And it also comes with some hand signs. So the hand signs aren't necessary, but I often find that they are helpful or doing body solfege. It's really just showing the relation of pitches. So higher pitches get a higher sign, lower pitches would get a lower sign. So I might point along and go, so, me, so, me. Have them repeat it back, so, la, la, so, me. And we would go through the whole song. And then I might ask them some questions to help them listen for the song so they can get it in their head. I might say, I'm going to sing this song for you. Can you tell me which one is the lowest pitch of the song? Where do I go lowest? So I'll sing the whole song through. Apple tree, will your apples fall on me? I won't cry and I won't shout if your apples knock me out. And hopefully they're listening, they hear out is the lowest one of the whole song. Now, so this is now we're looking at solfege. So the S is standing for so, the M is standing for me, the L is standing for la, and the D is standing for do. So I would go through the song, have them sing it on solfege. So, me, so, me, so, la, la, so, me. Now, I'm going to kind of play a game with them. So I'm going to take away one of the apples. So they're going to sing the whole thing through, except they're not going to sing the apple that has fallen off the tree. What I'm doing here is I'm actually getting them to audiate those pitches there. So audiate means they're not singing it, but they're thinking it in their head, which is super powerful to help students really grasp the tone and pitches that are happening in a song. So they'll go through the whole thing. So, me, so, me, so, la, la, so, me, so, me, so, me, la, la, so, do. And that is super, super tricky to do because I have to think what so sounds like, but not actually sing it with my mouth. So eventually, more apples are falling. We'll go through this until we have a lot of apples gone. So, me, so, la, la, me, so, me, la, la, so, do. Definitely more difficult than what we were doing with the younger students, but a great practice for older students. More apples fall off. I might say, here's the starting note, ready, and la, la, me, so, me, la, la, do. And if they can do that, that's pretty impressive. Most of the time they're gonna get a little bit off as they go through the whole song. Now, once we've done that whole activity, most of the time students are going to be spot on when we sing it back with all the apples again, because they've had some like really critical thinking and practicing with thinking it in their head. And then when we sing it back like this, I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. So we'll put words with it. And then I might say, hey, we are going to use just these 4 notes, knowing what you know about so, me, and la, and do. Can you figure out how to play this on a xylophone? And I might set students, depending on their ability level, I might just have them do that. You might notice that I have not shown any music yet. Like I'm thinking like, 5 bar lines with notes on them. A lot of what we do in elementary class is we do sound before sight. So they're hearing it, they're having to work with the melodies or the rhythms before I'm actually showing them the notation on a piece of paper. And a lot of music pedagogy, especially in recent 50 years or whatever, has shown that has been a huge, huge help for students. And later when they do see notation, it makes so much more sense to them because they've experienced it without getting the confusion of all of these notes and bar lines and everything like that. So they haven't seen the music. I'm just singing it for them, showing the so, the means, and the laws, and they're figuring this out on their own using just those four. So they're going to get some practice with that. And then I may, depending on where they're at, I may show them the notation, and we'll look, you know, hey, so is higher than me, and then la is just a little bit higher than so, and oh my goodness, look, all the way at the end, there's do, and it's the lowest one of them all, just like it was the lowest one that we sung. Now this music has so much more meaning for students because they were able to experience it first, and now this is going to make a whole lot more sense for them. I would not show this without talking about notation earlier, but this is kind of, at 4th and 5th grade, they've seen some of this before, so this isn't brand new. Then I might say, hey, I've got some rhythm cards for you. I'm going to pass them out in a group, and I want to see what kinds of patterns you can come up with. So I might tell them to pick 4 cards. I might tell them to pick 8 cards. Let's say a group comes up with this pattern. So they go, Granny Smith, red delicious York. Granny Smith, red delicious York. Awesome. Can you play that whole pattern on so, which is going to be C for them? So they're playing it. You can't see me, but I'm doing my pattern like this, so they're getting some practice with some good mallet technique. Then I might say, hey, can you play the whole pattern on me? And then hey, can you play the whole pattern on so? Can you play the whole pattern on do? So we're going through that, just giving them some mallet practice. Then I might say, hey, can you use so and la and play a pattern? So do use your rhythm, but now use so and la and see what you can come up with. Or whatever they come up with. So eventually we're going to get a lot of practice with that. And then I might say, hey, can you use all of those same notes? So back to here, can you use these 4 notes and come up with a pattern that you will play the same every time using those? So I'm going to let them have some opportunity to explore. They're coming up with some patterns. We share them as a class. So students might play a lot of different things. Oh, geez. Or whatever they come up with. Eventually, I want to steer them to end on that home tone do because it helps the song sound more completed. And I might show students some examples of that. Oh, now it sounds like the song's done. We ended on our home tone do, and the song is, it sounds complete then. So this would give students some composing opportunity. If you think back to kindergarten, 1st grade, we started with colors and just having students say it. And then this is moving all the way up to here, where students are not given total free rein in composing. I'm not giving them a xylophone and saying, hey, come up with something that sounds good. That's going to often, if I do that, the only students who are probably going to compose something that's like they're playing the same thing every time are students who play the piano or have a lot of musical background. But sometimes giving them some parameters of how to do it, like play these 4 notes or end on do, that can be hugely helpful to kind of mold them into, here's something that is, you know, it's a starting block for composition. So those are my apple tree lessons for you. I think it's kind of interesting, and hopefully you do, that just how much variation we can have off of literally like a silly song about an apple tree. Like we went on like totally different directions, and that's really what like creative music making is all about. And so all of you have creative ideas, and your children have creative ideas, and kind of letting them run with it can be pretty cool. So this is, I'm just going to kind of quickly go over this, but this is John Feierabend's, his curriculum. He has, this is what most, I would say, early music educators for music would use. And it's a really great resource, I think, for homeschool families, because it not only has this, it's kind of really easily laid out, but he also has CDs that come with the curriculum that if you purchase it. So if you don't feel comfortable singing with your children, or you don't feel quite like, I don't know what to do, this is a great resource. And there's actually for babies and toddlers as well. He really does music education from actually before birth through age 7 is really where he's focusing his time. So this is called First Steps in Music. And he kind of divides this out into a music workout, which I'll show you in a second. But he also has these supplemental books. There are some ideas in the big green book, but if you want more ideas of songs or games to play or movement activities to do, there are separate books that have more resources like that. So like this one, Songs and Rhythms with Beat Motions, movement exploration. There's tons of ideas in here for different ways to explore movement. And there's no music, like it says here. Tell the students that their hands are fireworks as you play occasional crashes on a cymbal. Have the students throw their hands up and out like fireworks exploring. Later, tell the students to dance around the room and occasionally use their whole bodies to represent the fireworks exploding. So this is, very, I think, accessible material if you don't feel quite comfortable with, if I put music in front of you, you're like, I don't know what this means. So this is, I think, a great accessible resource to have. And there's tons of these little books here that just offer some more ideas. Here's finger plays and action songs. Anyway, so this is kind of the workout of some things that he would have in that if you purchase that book. He goes through kind of this musical workout with students. And so first he starts off with what's called vocal glissandi. And so he just has kids imitate what he's doing with his voice, or maybe like with an instrument. So he'll go, can you sing that? And we do all sorts of vocal glissandi like that. I might have a slide whistle, and students are repeating back with their voice to match the slide whistle. Then we start to look at vocal glissandi, transferring it onto how it would look written. So like, ooh, and then students are following that line. Eventually, we'll turn it into kind of transferring to notation. So you'll see here, this is, woo. Then we put it with a bar line behind it, but they're still going woo. Then they're singing only on the notes. So we're starting to transfer over into that written notation. Ooh, 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 ooh. And then eventually taking that line away. Ooh, 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 ooh. They're also learning about, reading music from left to right, just like they would read in a book, all sorts of cool things. Then, echoing simple melodic patterns. He has these on the CDs as well. So I would go first, students would repeat after. Charlie over the ocean, Charlie over the sea, Charlie caught a big fish, can't catch me. And so they're just repeating back whatever I'm singing. Then we get a little more difficult, and then students are singing an entire simple song on their own. So it's a very short song. These melodies are on the CDs as well. So for example, frog in the meadow can't get him out. Take a little stick and stir him about. I would do all of those same things, like, you know, keep the beat on your head while I sing the song, jump like a frog while I sing the song, tricking them into hearing it hopefully 7 times. And then when I think they are ready, I'll say, hey, can you sing that on your own this time? And I'll listen. And so then students are singing it by themselves. And what I do in the classroom actually with this is I have some students who will stand up and solo sing, and they kind of get like a little reward and button for doing that. But I want them to feel comfortable with singing their songs for the class. They love that, and if I can build that at an early age, that comfortability, it does wonders for them later on. So then what John Feyerabend does is he does something called arioso. So he wants the children to spontaneously create tunes. Really the best way I think of describing this is if you have your children that are, if they're going around the house and they're singing made up songs, that is the epitome of arioso. So we first start off with things like, I might have a puppet and I might say, you know, hey, this puppet would love to sing with you, but he can only understand if you're singing back to him. So I might ask the students, I'll say, what did you do this weekend? And then they sing back and sing back to the puppet. Or we'll do things like, we'll look at a book like, brown bear, what did you see? And they have to sing back, you know, I saw the yellow duck looking at me. But they're making up the melody for it. I'm not telling them what to sing. They're just singing that on their own. But we usually start with just a few different pitches, so it doesn't have to be super, super complicated. All right, so then we look at a lot of movement, especially early on. So creating movement that can appropriately express the music. So I might tell students, hey, have you been on a roller coaster? And can you act out pick your favorite one on the screen, and I want you to act out what it would look like if you were moving like this, this favorite amusement park ride. So I would go ahead and play some music, and then when the music stops, I'll tell them that they're gonna freeze. Whenever we do movement, very rarely I will have the students actually, I will allow them to talk during it, because I want them to really focus on the movement. And also from a management perspective, if I have 30 kids on a roller coaster in my room, it's going to go crazy. So we don't make sounds so we can still enjoy the activity. So I might play music like this. And then I'll say, you know, hey, pick up what's your second favorite amusement park ride? And then I'll play the music again, and we do some more movement with that. There's other types of movement, creative movement too, that in the books he has a ton of ideas. But I say, you know, hey, let's pretend like this room is filled with Jell-O. What would it look like if you were, or what would your body look like if you were walking through this Jell-O that this room was full of? And so just really giving students some ideas to kind of build that imagination as well. Another really fun one, I think, is to give students scarves or something to move with. So I might say, hey, can you imagine like you're a fish in an aquarium, and what it might look like if you were going to match this music as a fish swimming around a fishbowl. So then I'll play something like this. What I'm really looking for though is the end goal is I want students to show expressive movement. So if I'm seeing students that are doing this, right, that's not really it's not really expressing what's happening in the music. Yes, students can have different interpretations of things, but we're really looking at them, emotionally responding to what the music is doing. Sometimes students are being silly and I just say, hey, we can still have fun without being silly, but eventually I really want them to hear and feel that music and then be able to express it with their body. That's kind of our ultimate goal there. Then we do a lot of performing with prescribed movements. So I will actually have them follow me, or sometimes if I'm needing to pull out instruments or whatever, have them follow the screen. So they're just following expressive movements from someone else. We'll just watch a little bit. Oops. So these, you can find a lot of things like this online, but just a great way for kids to experience music. And then having students maintain steady beats. This can be done through, there's again, a lot of options in the series that I was showing you, but just some singing games, maybe having them sing a song as they're, if you have multiple children, as they're going around in a circle, pass the pumpkin round and round, pass the pumpkin round and round, doing something where they're having to pass something on a beat can be a great way to practice beat making as a game. I might sing songs that have movements that go with them. So like, oh, the horse stood around with his foot on the ground, or the horse stood around with his foot on the ground, or the horse stood around with his foot on the ground, or the horse stood around with his foot on the ground. Now we're going to use both feet going back and forth. Oh, the horse stood around with his foot on the ground, or the horse stood around with his foot on the ground, or the horse stood around with his foot on the ground. And there are tons of these songs in there that are recorded as well. But just practicing that, maintaining a steady beat, and kids love it when you do it with songs or movement like that. It's just like a great way for them to get active and involved in what's happening. Before I move on from this though, a lot of what John Feierabend's work is looking at is building the possibility for aptitude, which really kind of is solidifying at age 7 or 8. And before you panic, what this really means is that when we look at music aptitude, it's looking at the potential later on for how much students are able to grasp in musical skills. So aptitude is not saying when you're 7 or 8, that's as good as music as you'll ever be. It's saying that if you have musical experiences, not necessarily formal music education, but just experiencing music or singing music or listening to music, all of those things can be super helpful in your potential for the rest of your life of what you can do musically with practice and effort. And so he really, really looks at, pushing a lot of musical experiences for students up through age 8 and making sure that students have music in their lives and are involved with it somehow. Then he always ends with, he does song tales. So he'll sing stories to students or sing a song for students. So this one here, it's just Had a Little Rooster. And so I will usually end class and sing a song for students, and I don't intend for them to sing with me. I just want them to be able to hear it and enjoy it. And occasionally I'll put some pictures with it as well. Singing voice, just some touching topics on singing voice. It can be very, very personal for adults and for kids. Your singing voice is like so exposed. You're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to sing for people because I'm embarrassed about my singing voice. And I'll actually, when I have subs who want, or teachers who want to sub for me, they're like, I will sub for you, but please don't make me sing anything is like the number one thing I hear. So I'm like, oh no. But the same for kids. We just want to be careful about how we respond with kids singing, and just making sure that we're not putting any judgment on their singing voices, especially when they're in those early developmental stages. And also being careful about how we talk about our own singing. So, if we say, oh, I'm a terrible singer, oh, you didn't get your musical genes from me, that can kind of, if you know anything about growth mindset, that can be something that's really tricky with kids, is that when we think that we're either a singer or not a singer, or we're a musician or not a musician, then we kind of put ourselves in that pool of like, oh, well, I don't sing songs. I don't know how to sing songs. And so when really, if we work and build the muscle of singing, almost everybody has the ability to sing in tune and to sing with, a beautiful quality of voice. There's actually only about 4% of the population that we consider to be on a spectrum of tone deafness. But that again is a spectrum, so it may just be a little bit off. But if you are unable to hear tone quality, it's also actually really tricky to understand what is the meaning behind what people say. So if I'm saying something like, can you go to the store? Or can you go to the store? Or can you go to the store? Like totally different meanings just based on my tone quality. So that listening for tone is helpful in our social life as well, or especially if you speak or are learning a tonal language. A lot of our Asian languages especially are very tonal. If you can't hear the pitch differences, you're not going to even understand the words of what they're saying. Making it a family activity. So singing songs as a family is a great way to, get involved. And if you have songs that are related to your culture or to your family history or are special to you, definitely use those and help them, build that culture, the 30-year plan that was talked about. If students are feeling uncomfortable, you can always use puppets as a way to kind of deflect. So for whatever reason, I put these googly eyes on a student. Now this is not their singing voice anymore, this is their singing voice. And so I've kind of transferred that, like, ooh, it's scary, it's me singing. And now it's just this singing, and they don't seem to understand that the two are related. So using puppets can be really helpful for students, also turning it into a game. Who stole my cookie? I stole your cookie. We're just playing a game and they're singing for me, but we don't have to be like, hey, sing a solo so everyone can hear. It's just part of the game, so they love to do it. Male voices, I know we don't have any males on today, but if you are a male parent that is homeschooling and you're concerned about singing too low, it can be helpful to sing in a falsetto, so singing up where the students are, but you don't need to stay there the whole time. One, you're going to hurt your voice, and two, if you sing in your octave, once you explain to students, hey, you're going to sing up here, I'm singing the same thing just a little bit lower, students will really pick up on it pretty quick. And so you can still sing with children in your octave range and have students be able to understand that. Oftentimes we actually sing way too low for kids. Even as females, our voices change as we grow older, so we're singing lower. So students will sing up higher than what you would think they would, and they actually sound better that way. That's really their kind of range that we want to look at. And we also want to develop what's called their head voice. So when we do all those activities, I'm really developing the kids' head voices and trying to get them to sing with the vibration really in the back in their soft palate versus in their chest. Oftentimes when students are singing out of tune, they're really singing only in their chest voice when they have the melody here, but they just can't do it with their voice yet. So what I mean by chest voice, if you think about your chest vibrating, when you talk, you're using your chest voice most of the time. And when you sing, it's in that lower range, you're singing with your chest voice. So like, apple tree, this is my chest voice. When I switch and I go up higher, if I've practiced that muscle of using in my head voice, apple tree, now my vibrations are happening in that soft palate, and I'm able to sing up in my head voice, which for kids, when they sing in their head voice, is that beautiful, pure sound that we love about children's choirs. So we want to make sure we're singing high enough that we can really activate that and practice that skill with kids when they're young. Kind of a funny thing, we call the happy birthday issue. You can tell if an adult has the capability of using their head voice because they will be able to sing all of happy birthday. So for example, if I don't have my head voice developed, I'm gonna go happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday dear. And I've suddenly changed key because I wasn't able to flip to my head voice, happy birthday, up into those higher notes. So it's kind of just this running joke for like music teachers when we sing happy birthday, we get to that point of the song and we're like, oh, sometimes it can get a little pitchy for us. Instruments, these are just some kind of basic instruments if you're looking to have some things at home. Recorders, I find, yes, I know recorders can be a little obnoxious, but they're a great way to develop some good music skills and some finger dexterity practice. I learned recorder, I played a lot of recorder actually in elementary school and then later transitioned to clarinet. A lot of those skills were super, super helpful for me. It has other great purposes beyond that too, but recorders are fairly inexpensive, so that's another good thing. I would recommend though, if you buy a recorder, even just spending like $5 more, like $10 instead of $5 will increase your quality and by like tenfold. So you can buy like a $2 recorder and it's probably going to be okay, but there's just something about it and it makes it more difficult to make a good sound, that just spend like the extra $5 and get something that's going to work a little better. I think this one was like $15. I mean, it's not anything fancy. It's just someone put a little more time into it. So recorders are great. Scarves, ribbons, colorful fabric for any type of movement. Doesn't have to be something that's hemmed. You could even just use like a rag. Those ribbons that are over here, I got on Amazon, I think for like $2 a piece. They're pretty cheap. Doesn't have to be super, super high quality. Hand drums, early hand drums, it's helpful for students to have something to hold on to versus this hand drum here. It takes a little more skill in playing it, but both are great. You don't need to have a huge drum or like a snare drum or anything. We use some larger drums, but mostly hand drums like this in class. Non-pitched percussion, so we're looking at anything that doesn't make a melody. So recorder, I can play a melody on here. If it doesn't play multiple different pitches, that would be non-pitched percussion, so it only makes one sound. I don't really have like a list of things that you need. Just having some non-pitched percussion is helpful. These are some examples, but you could even make your own non-pitched percussion at home, just putting, dried beans in a bottle or There's a lot of great websites on how to create instruments. So there's some creative things that you could do with that as well. Ukulele, I think, is a great instrument for students, especially those that are thinking they might want to play guitar. I don't have my ukulele here, but if you go to any of the music stores in town, they will give you some great guidance on a student version that would work really well with the size of your child. Concert ukuleles are a little bit bigger than soprano ukuleles. Either one is fine. They actually both have the same fingerings, but I think ukulele is just super fun, and I find that students they really latch on to learning it, and it's kind of cool to play just chords with songs. Like, we learned 3 chords, now we can play 200 songs, and it's super accessible for kids to use. Xylophones and bell kits. So if you're gung-ho about doing music at home and you want to buy a xylophone, I'm not going to stop you. I'm just going to tell you that you may be shocked, but this instrument here, which is an alto xylophone, you can see it there on the screen. It's probably going to run you about $500 with shipping. They're not cheap. We have to fundraise a lot of money to get a whole classroom set of them. But if you're into it and you really want to start, building an instrumentation at home, feel free. Alto is the best one because it matches the voice the best. It's the same range that students would be singing in. You can always get lower and have it be more of a bass line. That's totally fine. Bell kits look a little more like a piano. You'll see that they have like the black keys of the piano with the white keys. So if you're looking for something we call that chromatic, black keys and white keys together, those are not nearly as expensive, and also typically what students will get when they're learning percussion instruments in 6th grade. This is kind of what they practice with at home. Just some other things. Sometimes having headphones are helpful if you want to have a student doing a musical activity and other students doing something else, just having something that blocks out the noise. A quality speaker that's, most people have some really great quality speakers at home anyway, but I just put that on there to kind of give an idea. All right, so our last little bit here, we're just going to look at some curriculum ideas. If you're like, yay, I want to do music at home, give me some resources. Here are some resources. So this first one here, this is called Core Knowledge. People who are listening may have some familiarity with this. It's a classical model of education. I actually taught using Core Knowledge for my first 5 years of teaching. And this is going to be a lot more parent-driven. So this is going to provide you the what, but not the how. So it's going to be a lot more parents coming up with activities using this as kind of a guideline. So if that's not for you, skip ahead in the video or kind of ignore me for a second. But so if you click here, this is free. It's called the Core Knowledge Sequence. It's looking at what they believe that students should know, grade by grade, to become culturally competent musical citizens. So it's building on top of one another in each grade level, and it's also matching what they're doing in history and English and science and everything else. So just to give you an example, this is for grade 4. So it's showing you, this first one here is kind of like what I showed you earlier with the standards, like learning half notes, learning melody patterns. Has a lot of that there, but there's also a really strong push for, we think of more like the music appreciation side of things. So in 4th grade, they learn instruments of the orchestra. They listen to a piece by Benjamin Britten called The Young Person's Guide to the Orchestra. I mean, it's very like, this is what you're doing, which can be helpful for a lot of people if you're feeling kind of stranded and don't know what to do. We look at vocal ranges, identifying the vocal ranges of female and male voices. And then we look at these particular pieces of music. My fourth graders, I was shocked, but were absolutely fascinated by listening to the Met Opera's The Magic Flute. And we looked at the different pieces of music in that. We looked at the storyline of it. The Surprise Symphony is a lot of fun. We can look at Haydn and look about his life and research more into that composer. This is like very straightforward of things to do, which, like I said, can be super helpful. And then students in fourth grade, they learn about the Middle Ages. And so we did a lot with Gregorian chant in fourth grade and looking at the medieval time period of music. So very straightforward. And then they learned these songs in fourth grade. So we would practice singing all of these different ones. And then we also something my fourth grade boys especially were super into was learning songs of the US Armed Forces. I taught in a military town, so students had a lot of like personal connection with this. And then we learned not only the songs, but we learned some of the history behind the songs too, which was actually pretty fascinating for them. This one here, this is called music. They used to be called preschool prodigies, and like all virtual things right now, this has kind of exploded because they're like, oh my gosh, we have a huge market now for virtual music. So they have really expanded their curriculum. I'm not a super fan of some of the stuff in this. I will just say it's a little bit like playing Guitar Hero for me, and they actually said that in the video after I thought it, and I was like, oh gosh, that just kind of makes me cringe. But it does have some useful things with it. I do think that so they have these desk bells here, you'll see over on the side. They really, really push instruments early for kids, and I think a little bit too early. Like preschoolers learning to play two bells, and I don't know, it's a little bit too much instrument for me even, but they do have some great ukulele, piano, singing, desk bell resources, which are out of the box, ready to go, these different video lessons. So this could be a great option if you're looking to access something that is like you don't need to have any planning for it. So just to give you a little glimpse of this, I'm gonna go ahead and play this.
Hey, Prodigies. My name is Mr. Rob. I'm the host and creator of the Prodigies Music Lesson Program. And Prodigies is just that, a series of music lessons that will teach you and your kids all about the language of music. Prodigies is an accessible, colorful, and affordable way to teach your kids music. It's kind of like Guitar Hero meets Blue's Clues. I teach you a little bit about a song, about a melody, about some pattern on an instrument, and then we will jump into playing with the sheet music, with the melody, with the chords. We do lots of call and response. We do lots of reading sheet music as it comes this way, or playing the bells as they fall into the circles. And I promise that you and your kids will have a lot of fun with the music lessons here at Prodigies. Unlike other music programs, Prodigies focuses a lot on early instrumental performance, so we are playing the bells or a resonator xylophone or the boomwhackers, or at the least we are singing and hand signing with the solfege hand signs, or maybe tapping and clapping with some call and response rhythms. Prodigies also places a heavy emphasis on oral comprehension. This is the idea of being able to hear a note, hear a chord, hear a melody, understand it, write it down, know what notes you heard. This idea of relative pitch, but really even absolute or perfect pitch. The idea that you can hear a note, know what it is. This is easily developed by kids who are 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 years old. So here at Prodigies, we are focused on giving kids at that age meaningful play with pitch to help them develop their long-term sense of pitch. At its core, Prodigies is a series of colorful videos, books, and instruments, and you can learn a little bit more by watching this next clip.
Looking for fun and engaging music activities for your kids? With prodigiesmusic.com, you'll use simple hand signs, accessible instruments, and colorful videos to teach your kids to sing in tune, understand rhythm, and play their first instrument, because every kid should feel like a prodigy.
All right, so that is Prodigy. Again, it's there, all the lessons are right there. You just click play and it's kind of, it's ready to go, which is super nice. This next one here, this is called Maestro Classics, and it's, by the way, Prodigies you do need to pay for. So I'm also wanting to give you kind of a money idea of some of this too. Some of these resources on Maestro Classics are free, some are paid for. This is really kind of looking at a whole cross-curricular connection with music. So I don't think I have this one loaded. So it's looking at some different pieces of music and then really expanding it for other curriculum areas as well. So this is all about Bach and the pipe organ. I picked this, Katrina, just for you. But it's looking at the history. Here are some famous people. Here's who was alive during that time, what was happening in the world. We're looking at the science behind, the physics of the pipe organ, the geography, where is Germany? What cities are in Germany? What's the capital? Then we're looking at, the German language. Bach studied Latin. All of these different things that are just really pulling other areas in as well. And this whole thing here is free. I just pulled it up. So some of the resources are free. I think the books, if you want to buy like the book pack to go with it, then you would have to pay for. So it's really just giving a ton of activities and then giving that cross-curricular connection back to music as well. Here's more math. So lots of stuff on there for Maestro Classics. Looking at it more of like a not so much active music making for this, but there's still definitely some great application and some good resources there. Music Play Online. This is actually one that ASD just purchased for all of the schools. And I asked today about, does Family Partnership have an account? And I don't think they do. But that's something I can look into as well. But the Music Play Online, there are some free resources, but to access everything you have to pay. I think there's a monthly or a yearly subscription. I'm going to go ahead and play this video because it does a better job of explaining it than I do.
I recommend Music Play Online to all the music teachers I know.
There's so many different options that are available with this program.
Because it's all online, there are no heavy piles of books and CDs to carry around like I used to have to.
I love the resource. It's a great resource.
MusicPlayOnline.com was created to take all the materials in the Music Play K-6 curriculum and organize them in one easy-to-navigate online tool. There are thousands of song choices. Songs are searchable by keyword, rhythm, or tone set. Download and print year plans, month outlines, weekly lessons, even subplans. Song videos teach songs using notation, lyrics, kids demo, or note highlights. Thousands of song-specific interactive activities teach, review, and assess concepts such as beat, rhythm, solfege, form, and more. Interactive activities are linked to printable worksheets and manipulatives to get kids reading, writing, and creating. Fun games with silly endings engage the students while teaching and reviewing concepts. There are tools to get kids composing rhythms and melodies. Listening logs and maps encourage children to respond to music, have fun with active listening using cups, ribbons, and play-alongs. Guitar, ukulele, and recorder units are included. Guitar and ukulele have links to pop songs that kids love. Solfa and rhythm practice videos for many levels are included. Play the interactive games Which Melody or Which Rhythm Do You Hear with all levels for K-6. The units section gives teachers great lessons for celebrations throughout the year. Units to teach music theory and instruments of the orchestra are online, and many more units are planned. Music Play Online is so much more than a song database. It's an amazing resource that includes tools, activities to teach all aspects of K-5 music curriculum. This is not a website to provide edutainment with kids looking at a screen. It's a teaching tool to engage the students in music making, exploring, playing, and creating. All of this is just $149 a year.
All right, so I actually, just to kind of, I'm not getting a kickback for any of this, but Music Play Online, it's created by a woman named Denise Gagne, and she is a renowned music educator far before this was even a thing. So I do appreciate that, like, this is someone who has a strong stance in music education or a strong background. And it's a little more active than some of the other ones, if you kind of notice that as well. So there are some great things on Music Play Online. Again, I'm not getting any money for it, but just to put my 2 cents in there. These are some free resources. If you go to any orchestra website, they have a ton of activities, a ton of free activities for kids. Just to name a few, the San Francisco Orchestra's webpage has a ton, the Chicago Symphony, any of them really. If you were looking at, trying to find specific pieces of music or activities to go with them, there's a ton of great resources I use all of the time from these websites. Just to highlight one, there is a great resource on Carnegie Hall's website. They have a program called what's called Link Up. And so Link Up is looking at, it's really based around kids performing with the symphony up on stage. And you could really replicate that pretty well at home. But if you see here, there's a bunch of kids in the audience that are all playing recorder as the orchestra is playing up on stage. I actually had the opportunity to use this with some kids in Colorado. We did this and we all brought our recorders to the symphony and we danced with the symphony. We played recorder with the symphony. We sang with the symphony. It's super interactive. And best of all of these resources are free on their website. So kind of just to give you some of what this looks like, this, like I said, you could replicate a lot of this and do kind of an at-home concert this way, but they have 4 programs now. So the orchestra moves, the orchestra sings, the orchestra rocks, and the orchestra swings. And so there are all these performances based around those ideas, but giving kids a ton of interactive opportunities with it. So we'll just go ahead and watch this to give you a better idea.
Link Up is our program for 3rd through 5th graders, and it is all about introducing students to the orchestra by helping them get ready to become a part of it. They've been learning the melodies that they're going to play either on the recorder or that they're going to sing. If they happen to be fortunate enough to be in a string program, they might be learning some of those melodies on string instruments. And then they come to the concert, they're ready to play and sing. The performance is highly participatory. It's all about becoming a part of the Link Up ensemble.
It's just an amazing program with an amazing curriculum.
It's cool how you can choose if you want to sing or play the recorder. And if you play the recorder, you can hear what other instruments sound like with the recorder.
I thought the concert was great, really exciting, lively.
There are 3 versions of Link Up. Link Up the Orchestra Rocks, which is all about rhythm. Link Up the Orchestra Sings, about melody. And Link Up the Orchestra Moves, which is about moving a melodic motif around the ensemble.
It has been an amazing time just teaching.
All right, so that kind of gives you an idea of what it's like. And again, all of those resources are free. So just to give you an idea, like this is a worksheet page on there, and then they would let you play those different patterns, and students are having to find, which ones are accented notes, has their emphasized notes. And then they would later learn, a recorder piece or very simple recorder that goes along with it. It really does start out for beginner recorders, so it's accessible for students who've never played recorder before. They kind of simplify the pieces down to just using 2 different notes and playing harmonies with the songs, which is kind of cool. These are just some more resources. These are free, they're YouTube channels. Matthew Strensrud, he is a nationally renowned music educator, and because of virtual learning has put some, I think he's, I don't know, like a dozen lessons at least for each grade. I think they're 20 or 30-minute lessons that he's posted on YouTube, and you can go ahead and access. Super interactive. He uses an Orff-based curriculum, so kind of like with Apple Tree, what I was doing with that is kind of where his background comes from as well. I would really recommend them if you're looking for, like, again, it's already ready to go out of the box. You have your things ready. He does use some scarves and instruments as well, so if you have those, that would kind of enhance the experience too. And then Ukuleleans, this is I just love this website for kind of learning ukulele. And what I really love about it is it gives the instruction. There's some instructional videos of what to do, but then it goes by difficulty level. So starting with very easy songs, maybe using 2 chords, and then, you know, it gets higher in difficulty level, but organizing those videos that way can be really helpful. So you're not like, I don't know, like, what's an easy song? So, and this would be even a great way for older students, you know, say, hey, if they have some self-directed learning on this, you know, giving them the ability to kind of go through and do things at their level so that they're not getting too frustrated by trying to play something way too hard too early, or playing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, you know, the famous ukulele song, before they're ready for it, because that one is quite difficult. And then there's also some practice play-alongs. Again, this is all just a free resource. It's from a British teacher, I believe. And then she has a companion website called Ukulele Wales, so you can also access some resources there. These are some teacher resources. These are all going to be pretty expensive, but I just wanted to put them out there. If you feel comfortable with reading notation and comfortable with, you know, getting more of like the teacher side of things, like it's going to give you directions like a teacher manual. These are some that just a small snippet, but some ones that I really love. Artie Almeida has some great resources out there, very, very active and fun. Some of them even with like flashlights doing musical things with them and basketballs. And then 2 of the curriculum resources I really like are Purposeful Pathways and Game Plan. This is going to take more on the parent side of things to kind of look at it and prepare and understand kind of deal. But I just wanted to put it out there if anyone is wondering kind of what my opinion about some of those teacher resources are. I do like those. Then again, you're already teaching all of this great, you know, instruction at home. This is just some ways to help you integrate music with other cross-curricular connections. Songs to help learn topics, singing about, you know, the different money values for a penny and quarter and nickel, and there's tons of those songs online. If you're singing about math facts, sometimes, you know, singing math fact songs, it really helps it stick in students' brains. Again, just search on the internet. There's tons of stuff out there on Pinterest and wherever. Teachers Pay Teachers. Songs to help you learn things in other curriculums are a great way to integrate music. Expressive movements, so just, you know, acting things out that you have in history, or if you're reading a book, putting some movement with it is a great way to integrate. I just pulled some books that I have at school, but everyone has, you know, lovely children's books at home for kindergarten through 5th grade or 6th grade. This year we do a lot of movement with, so our very lovely friend Eric Carl. There's just lots of movement in here. Up and up and up he climbed. I read this, students act it out. We act out, you know, the expanding moon that happens in the story. Our bodies get bigger and bigger. Just a way to kind of get involved with music and reading. This book, Fry Bread, I just highlighted one page in here. It may be just a small part of the story can have some music relation, but like here, the skillet clangs on the stove, the fire blazes from below, drop the dough in the skillet, the bubbles sizzle and pop. We could just take that and do some musical things with only, one part of this story, but there's definitely some action words in there that are pretty fun. You can sing stories. This is not a song. I just made it up because it rhymes and I thought it sounded nice. So I would sing this for students. Open doors, rush outside, we will sing and we will slide. We'll have fun side by side, all are welcome here. And it's the same pattern on each page. So I just sing the same melody with new words. And I just made it up as I go along. But sometimes singing books can kind of help, make them come alive for kids. Some books are songs. I just did this on Zoom with some of my younger students today. So reading books that are songs and then singing the song that goes with it, you can find them on YouTube or wherever, is a great way to help a story come alive. And then also just some musical history. So, stories about composers. This is about China's Cultural Revolution. So this is more aimed towards older elementary. But students love this, learning about music around the world or how others experience music. Just a great way to build that literature in with music as well. Theory and math definitely are tied together. You could definitely look at some, especially with fractions, how music and math are so similar. Oftentimes, if you're really strong in your musical intelligence, you likewise would also have a really strong math intelligence as well. And so really bringing those together and showing how they're related can be pretty cool. And then last one, historical connections. So, all parts throughout, lots of things throughout history have amazing musical connections, and kids love learning about that. If you're learning about, the big one that comes up is when students are learning about slavery and the Underground Railroad, learning those songs is really impactful for students, and they can really start to relate all of this back with their history lessons. We did a lot of looking at music with social movements with my 6th graders last year, looking at the singing revolution that happened in Estonia. Kids were super fascinated with that. We Shall Overcome has had a huge part in our history for the United States. And so looking at how that song has been hugely impactful and used for a lot of different occasions. Gregorian chant we talked about with the Middle Ages. There's a great connection there, talking about the role of religion at that point and how religious music had a huge stronghold on what was happening in Europe with music at that time. So tons of historical connections, and students love that when you can relate it back to what's happening in history. Last thing I wanted to highlight, because she is a dear friend of mine, is Marsha Williams, and she is offering a class right now for students, and is sponsored through Family Partnership and I believe IDEA as well. But she is a fabulous teacher, and she was actually the 2020 Alaska champion for the arts and education, and she is doing live Zoom classes. So in recorder, ukulele, and then a general music classroom for K1 and then 2nd and 3rd. So I will send this out with the slides, but definitely highly recommend her classes. She does an amazing job with students and has been doing this for quite a while. I know I was supposed to kind of put my personal plug in here. Well, I was going to be doing some things this fall. It just, with getting the district to sign off on it, because I have a conflict of interest since I teach in the district, it took a little bit longer. But then I'm also going to be having my first baby here in about a month. So, so I'm kind of looking at doing something maybe in the like winter semester or second semester. Still trying to figure out what and how that will look like, but I would love it if I'm offering something and you feel like this has been valuable and worth your time and you'd love to have your kids get involved in music and have me facilitate that. That would be lovely, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. Definitely recommend Marcia though, she's fabulous. And she is in Anchorage and teaches in ASD as well, but she is I know, offering some excellent music classes for students. So all of that being said, that is kind of where I'm at for right now. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen so that we can actually see each other. And I want to thank you, Katrina, for letting me come on and ramble about music for so long.
Well, can I ask one more question before you go? Yeah. So I know a lot of families, including me, have multiple ages of kids. So can you just kind of speak to where to start? Because I have a kindergartner, I have a second grader, I have a fourth grader. So I'm sure a lot of families have that same multi-age. So what would you suggest?
Awesome. Okay. So I would say, some of the things that are a little bit, everyone has multi-ages of kids unless you're looking at just one or you have twins or something. I think finding ways for kids to get involved, we looked at the apple tree song, for example, and making it so that, it's each student or each child that you have can have a part in that together. And that it may look a little bit different. Like, maybe your older student is able to play on the xylophone, like they're playing back and forth and the kindergartner's singing along, or the older student is able to, come up with some different rhythm patterns and they're putting this all together. A lot of times music teachers have to find ways, even in the same grade level classroom, we've got a huge range of ability. And so finding ways that I can differentiate for different levels of students is kind of similar to that as well. And so, yeah, I would say, just finding ways that they can make music together, but at their ability level, and giving them a part of what to do for each of them. That's more of like an active music making where you're doing something together. But I also think if you have multiple ages of kids and you're just wanting to provide some type of music, really looking at some of those resources that I talked about that are like, this is ready to go, and that your students can access without really a whole lot of overhead guidance from you, can just be a great way to get started. And I think that's sometimes the hardest part. Like Music Play Online, there's already resources there, K through 6. So it's accessible for all of your kids at the level that they need. Hopefully that helps.
I have more questions, but I will open it up to the other ladies. Do you guys have a question before I keep asking her questions?
I see Sarah wrote in the chat. She says she really wants to check out the Maestro Classics, so that's awesome.
Yeah, those Maestro Classics have CDs that you can purchase and they tell the story, and we listen to those in the car all the time. So yeah, those are fun.
Cool.
So yeah. I have another question because I hear, well, first of all, when would you recommend kids start taking piano lessons or music lessons? And then my second question, which goes along with that, is if your child's taking the lessons for a while and they're just not liking it, or you don't feel like they're doing well, what is your suggestion? How do you know when it's time to switch or quit, or how long do you give that instrument before you move on?
Oh, okay. Well, I would say, oftentimes I find that, when is your child ready to start music lessons? I say when they start asking and wanting it. I just, on a personal note, totally personal note, I started asking my mom for piano lessons because I was around my grandma who played piano. And so I was like, I had the buy-in, I wanted to do it. And so I think when kids are starting to ask about it, that would be kind of the start to open that window of opportunity into saying, hey, let's look at into this, or is this just like a special of the week kind of thing we want to do and bang around on the piano? Because it does take a lot more focus than that. I know some people say, if your child's ready for, sitting at the piano for 20 minutes, like at a time, if they're able to sit and focus for that, like that might be also a time to show that they're ready to be serious about starting lessons. Not that they can't get involved in music in other ways, but for a more formal type of lesson. I will say that a lot of times I see students that are starting, sometimes, a lot of band instruments. Like I have like a first grader right now who's playing the trumpet, and I'm just like, this is not developmentally appropriate, but great, keep it going. But just because your physical, it's very difficult to play trumpet, and your body is just not, lung capacity and all of that has not grown into it. But piano is a great way to start. Singing is obviously a great way to start. As far as when to know when to stop, I will say, when I was young, I told my mom every year I was going to quit piano, and I was so fed up with it by concert time. I was like, I'm never doing this again. And then I got over myself and moved on. But I mean, that's kind of it's a more of a parent choice with things. And I have, friends or parents I know with older children who their older children are like, you should have never let me quit. I would have loved it. Like, it was so much, like, I now would have so appreciated it. Like, why did you let me give up? I also think there's something to be said about doing too much. And I think a lot of times, if we're playing hockey and we're playing piano, and then we've got dance lessons, and then we're also going and doing chess club at, at a different venue, and all of this stuff is happening, and we're doing, it just gets to be too much. And I think when students start to feel overwhelmed, helping them, guide them into making decisions about, what do you like best, or where should you put your time? Sometimes if music doesn't fall in that category, I mean, that's just what it is. And I don't think that there's any harm in a child saying, hey, I'm more interested in playing hockey right now. That's totally fine. And they can have other ways to access music too. But I do see a lot of kids that are like so over involved, and then they're just like, I don't have a time to be a child anymore. So I would say, I mean, just use your parent judgment on that. And, if you're pulling teeth and trying to drag them to the piano nonstop, and you're just like, they absolutely hate every moment of it. If it's something that's extending for like months and months and months and months, I would say, hey, let's look at maybe looking at something else. But if it's like me, who it comes to concert time and I want to quit every year, that's just a temporary feeling. And I finally got over it. So, So I think that hopefully can help give some guidance to that.
No, that's super helpful, I think. I think a lot of parents listening have kids taking piano, and those are hard questions. And I love all the resources you gave us, Julie, so much. I am probably going to go back and listen a second time so I can take more notes. So thank you for filling our brains up with all these ideas and giving us ideas beyond just piano lessons, because I think piano lessons is where everyone goes. It's what my kids are doing, but now we have lots of other things we can try. So I'm excited to start. Thank you for sharing your brain with us.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you both for joining, Sarah and Tanya. Thank you guys for staying on this whole time, and hopefully you got some good ideas out of it as well. So yay.